mess this up already, Colin. The first producers of boba outside of Taiwan, is that correct? Is in
That is
Hayward, or am
correct.
I messing this
Yes.
up? Okay,
No,
good.
you're right. It's the first boba factory outside of
Still got it.
Taiwan is located in Hayward, California.
It is March 15th, 2026. This is Over the Loudspeaker, Season 2, Episode 5. Colin, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I apologize in advance, listeners. I have my husky voice on because I'm recovering from an illness I received from a plague-bearing child who is, of course, recovered long ago, and I'm on the tail end of it. But I promise I'm going to be doing the best I can because sickness don't stop the news.
No, the news don't stop for sickness either. So, we got to keep it moving. I mean, we should encourage people resting, though.
Yes.
We should encourage it, I should say, but I'm not encouraging you to rest right now, Colin, because you have some headlines to work through, and we have some major topics to talk about. By the way, you were featured, or I should say, the Hayward Herald was featured in the Tri-City News. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Colin, before we jump into the headlines?
Yeah, sure. We can plug the Tri-City Voice. The fine people of
Tri-City
the
Voices.
Tri-City.
The Tri-City
Yes.
Voices, that's what it is. What did I
No
say?
worries.
Tri-City News?
Yeah, but it's okay. It's fine.
Well, that's messed up. I mean, we're not receiving they're not a sponsor of the program, so Tri-City something. Okay, that made it worse now.
Tri-City something. Just be totally dismissive on accident.
Yeah.
But no, the fine people at the Tri-City Voice were kind enough to reach out to me and ask me to write something for Hayward's 150th birthday, which happened this past May 11th. And so I did. I wrote a nice little 500-word article, a little opinion piece about Hayward and some of the weirdness of the history and the weirdness of the present and how much I just love the city, because honestly, if I didn't, I wouldn't be doing any of this. Like, this is the work of a madman. And you don't do this unless you have brain problems and you love something. So if you were able to get a physical copy, because I know that's where most people get the Tri-City Voice, check it out. I was on, I think, page 6 or something like that, somewhere in there. Not front page news, but there was a little blurb on the front about it, so you can dig through that if you want. That's also on their website. Linked it on the newsletter and on the website, and I think I posted it on Wednesday, an expanded version, because I don't have to worry about word count on my own dang website. So I made it longer with some extra little tidbits and fun facts and links to things. So if you're interested and you haven't checked it out yet, I encourage you to check it out. It's fun. You might learn something, and maybe if you want, you can tell me something, because I learn something new every single day.
I was really excited to hear that you were being featured on the Tri-City Voice, and I was surprised to learn that the first boba spot, or the boba, I'm going to mess this up already, Colin. The first producers of boba outside of Taiwan, is that correct? Is in Hayward, or am I messing this up?
Okay, no, good. You're right. It's the first boba factory outside of Taiwan is located in Hayward, California. We are the home of U.S. produced boba.
Incredible. See, you learn something every day. And I will say that I was excited that they reached out, because to me it felt like, okay, it solidifies the Hayward Herald as the prominent voice in terms of producing and covering what's happening locally. That felt like a big deal to me, and it felt like a recognition, so shout out to the folks over at Tri-City Voice for reaching out and for asking you, Colin, to contribute a piece. I thought it was a big deal.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I believe if I'm gonna use my noodle, and hopefully my sick brain is remembering correctly, that it's Amy and Stephanie, who reached out to me and got my article into print, and it was great. I feel so validated. I published in print and everything, not that I didn't produce. So that's pretty cool. And it's Tri-City Voice is great. They keep it light, but they're they're out there doing something, and you got to appreciate that in this day and age.
Yeah, and the Tri-City Voice is mostly read in published format, right? It's unlike us, that's mostly digital and read on a screen. Most of what Tri-City Voice, even though they do have a website, I think most of the readers come from the actual newsprint. Is that correct?
Yes, the editor said that she's certain that most of the readers are still in print because she gets mailed news clippings still with comments attached to them.
Ah,
So that's definitely you're getting a
awesome.
certain demographic, but
Awesome. Well, speaking of newsprint, before we move on from Hayward's 150th birthday and publishing things in newspaper outlets, I mean, this is a bit of a stretch here, but I'm still going to talk about Hayward's 150th birthday because I published something in for the first time that isn't a podcast, that isn't audio visual format. I made something for the Hayward Herald, and I did a little comic strip celebrating Hayward's 150th birthday. You can find it right now on the haywardherald.org. I think it's pretty cool. I think folks, at least I've heard from a couple folks that they enjoyed it. They found it funny. They found the tale funny. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, it's because you haven't read the comic strip. Go read the comic strip, you'll see some of the motivation behind it too. For those who don't know, I've been a long time comic book reader since I was a kid. Always loved the comics and newspapers. Think comics and newspaper are an important piece of print media. You know, whatever that means is, to me, is really important. And so even though we're not necessarily strictly print media, we're media. I think comics are really important to the news, and hopefully it inspires more folks to create and contribute comic strips or political cartoons, and we get to publish more of them on the Hayward Herald. That would be a dream come true for me. I don't know, Colin, about you. We need more political cartoons and comic strips.
Oh my God, if you're into, especially if you're into like doing local political cartoons, please reach out. I would love to have political cartoons on there. That I don't have that kind of talent, but if you do and you're so moved, um, I would love to feature political cartoons. Those would be so great, and it'd be so niche in the best possible way that like almost like an inside joke. I will
Mhm.
say I the yours was fantastic. I'm so glad that you did it, and I was more than happy to share it out with everybody. I'm glad there's a good reception because I think it's deserved, because this is definitely the kind of thing where like it gets some fun points across in a way that you just can't in any other media. I'm fully supportive of newspaper, especially political comics, but even just print comics that you find in any old newspaper. If you're a fan of the newspaper funnies, I don't think you're a bad person. That's all I used to read the newspaper for.
And I will say, I've I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to do something around Hayward's 150th birthday, but I think there were so many things to touch on and related to Hayward's 150 years. So I was like toying around with the idea of doing something historical or like bringing different images together, like in a collage. And and then I was looking at the maps for inspiration, and I was like, wow, it's so tiny. How the original Hayward's is so tiny, and that's what kicked it off. And so I think I did 3 or 4 very late nights of me sort of sketching out the idea and then putting it together on my iPad, which, um, for those who are, maybe this is too much insider baseball already of comic making, but it's actually challenging because you have to think about the written word and then the visual and how they complement each other. Anyway, couple late nights, but it came together, and I thought, it nothing magical, but I really enjoyed. doing it, and I'm glad some people are liking it. If you hate it, you should also voice that you hate it. You should come and tell me to my face that you hate it. No, I'm kidding. just let
You
us know.
know, no, what you should do is if you don't like it, I encourage you to become a paid subscriber so you have access to the comments. So then you can tell us just how much you dislike
Oh,
it. An email will
cool.
go straight to Nestor and he
Yeah.
will get it. I promise you.
Yeah. That's great. I love that. Colin, should we jump into the headlines?
Oh gosh, yes. It's the headlines that save us. It's March 2026, and I'm Colin Thormoto from the Hayward Herald with your local news headlines. Cycling and transit advocates took to public comments over the deaths of 3 pedestrians in a 10-day span, all of which occurred on the city's high injury network. Members of Bike East Bay and Bike Hayward said, quote, all of these tragedies were completely preventable, end quote, and called for quick build solutions to prevent further deaths. Mayor Mark Salinas said that the incidents were still under investigation, but sent condolences to the affected families. City Manager Jennifer Ott made commitments to quick build solutions where appropriate, like high visibility crosswalks. However, the repaving plan was criticized by advocates and some council members for not including sufficient bike and pedestrian infrastructure. As the Hayward Unified School District prepares for another round of cuts, the Board of Trustees was divided on the closure of Faith Ringgold's School of Arts and Science. The cut is expected to save the district approximately $400,000 per year, but Faith Ringgold staff warned that the cuts may cost more than they save due to students leaving the district. Trustees Austin Buckner Carrillo and Sarah Prada tried to push a vote to include at least 3 director-level furlough days per calendar year in the plan, saving more than the cost of closing the school. However, the superintendent and other trustees blocked the move. Despite balancing the budget this year, the city of Hayward is still facing a $32 million deficit unless they take action. The causes for the financial issues are, among other things, generous labor contracts, overly optimistic revenue projections, and not adhering to financial best practices. The city plans to balance the budget with a number of measures, including relying on short-term funding from Measure C and K1, selling property like Cinema Place and City Center, and updating the business license tax to match neighboring cities. But even these steps leave a big enough deficit that further negotiations with unions will be needed to avoid more layoffs. The city workforce was reduced by approximately 11% this year from retirements, holding vacancies, and layoffs. If you'd like to learn more about these headlines and support what we do, please subscribe at haywardherald.org. The Hayward Herald is your only source of independent Hayward news delivered to your inbox at least twice a week. Please subscribe and share our stories with your friends, family, and neighbors. And the ticker every time. It's a trusted
Thanks,
friend.
Colin. The trusted friend, the ticker, to remind all of you to subscribe on our socials. And if you're watching this on YouTube, to do the like, follow, and subscribe, and do the little bell so that you're alerted whenever there's a new episode, which is not, we're not bombarding you here with content, video, at least audio visual content. It's a nice curated selection every month that you're getting through over the loudspeaker and the Hayward Herald. Colin, let me turn this ticker off. Let's talk a little bit about some of the pedestrian deaths that have occurred in the last few weeks in the city of Hayward, and how the city is trying to address it. I know that in your article, you went into a little bit of depth there, and talked about how the 3 deaths that occurred happened within 2 weeks in major thoroughfares, one being Foothill and B Street, Tennyson and Baldwin Street, which 2 victims were, there was 2 victims in that accident, and then the 2300 block of Mission by Regis. So at least 2 of those. Is it fair to say that 2 of those are sort of loop related?
Yeah, I think that would be fair to say, because I think the Mission Boulevard construction that happened all the way down to Industrial, that was all part of the same project with the loop. Yeah, I would definitely say those are loop related. And also, just before we continue, if you speak Spanish in any capacity, I encourage you, if you're interested in especially the accident that happened on Tennyson, I believe it was Telemundo did fantastic coverage, video, like news
Mhm.
coverage of that particular accident. They found traffic, or no, they found security footage from a local business that managed to catch it on tape and did some fairly extensive coverage, from what I understand. So shout out to them, one of the only news outlets covering Hayward in any kind of depth.
It's true. I will say Telemundo is often the reporter. I think I've met at least two of their reporters, and they often come out and do coverage of local Hayward news and things that impact the Latino community out here. So yeah, kudos to them. So somewhat related to the loop, but clearly there is some issues with traffic. One thing that I wanted to do before I jumped on here, and which I was struggling to find, was the number of pedestrian deaths that have occurred in the last year. I would say including 2025 to now. And I had some trouble finding that. I saw some different numbers, but I couldn't verify any of them, or at least I couldn't find where they were coming from. So I'm not going to say what those numbers are just because I don't know if those are accurate. But it could be at least in the double digits of pedestrian deaths. Does that sound about right? I don't know, Colin, if you're aware of what some of the numbers might be in terms of. I know that accidents are sort of different from pedestrian deaths in that, it might be traffic collisions, or it might be a biker that's involved. But I couldn't find at least a clear source of where that data is sort of being tracked.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I am not sure where that data is being tracked. I'd imagine you could probably, I'd say the way to probably best get a good answer, an official answer, would be to ask for numbers from the police department, because I'd imagine
Yeah,
any sort of incident is going to be have some sort of report filed with them.
right.
Beyond that, that's a good question. I know that the number of pedestrian related incidents is almost certainly in the double digits for a year. I think that's pretty consistent. I don't know whether all of those resulted in death or just injuries. But I know that if they happened I mean, if nothing else, we have a high injury network where we pretty much know that that's where most of the pedestrian and bicycle collisions and fatalities happen. So the fact that we have enough data to say that, like, this is where it happens the most is kind of indicative that we have a good amount of them.
Yeah, and could you say a little bit more about the high injury network? Is this an initiative that the city obligated to do this, or is this an initiative that the city started as a result of accidents and pedestrians deaths that occurred?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer, whether it's something that's city initiated or if it's mandated. I know that the Alameda County Transportation Commission sort of incentivizes keeping track of
Mm,
this kind of information, because their funding changes to a lot of it. But the basically what it is just, again, it's just the different streets where the majority of deaths happen, and injuries happen. So you won't be surprised to hear that if you can think of a major street that has 3 lanes or more, or two or 3 lanes, and has a speed limit of between 35 and 45 miles an hour, it's probably on that list. So you're talking definitely Mission, Foothill, Tennyson, Hesperian. Grand is one of them that's on there that's really bad because it doesn't have it's a bike route, so it doesn't have a separated bike lane. So you're encouraged to just be in traffic that goes sometimes 45 miles an hour, which is really dangerous. And so yeah, there's a few of them. I can send you a map to throw up if you want to edit that in. And
yeah,
yeah,
that'd be great.
it's pretty gnarly. But they're ones that you'd kind of expect, because they're where people are going to go fast. There's a lot of cars. They're not the side streets or anything like that. These are like the major thoroughfares where you
Yeah.
have businesses and cars and people just like all sort of thrown together.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll link that in the video. So maybe you've already seen it, or if not, it'll be in the show notes. But here is, I was like, we have technology. High injury network safety plan. It's part of a maybe a source of federal funding, federal grant that created this, the Safe Streets and Roads for All. So the Hayward Local Road Safety Plan, or the LRSP, identified a high injury network in the city. The 18% of roads where 75% of serious injuries and fatalities occur in the city, funded in part by a grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation Safe Streets for All program. So this is federal funding that is looking to address where injuries are occurring in major areas. So, you know, to a certain extent, maybe this is helping identify what's already happening, and that's a good thing. So progress in the right direction, but there seems to be some limits to what is actually being done to either address or minimize or prevent deaths or pedestrian accidents or bicycle accidents from occurring. There seems to be some solutions, including high visibility crosswalks, which you mentioned, that the city manager has talked about. Maybe some new bike lanes that have been added, and safety improvements to certain sectors, but there seems to be some limits and that plans don't match up. What's going on here, Collin? What do we make of this?
So from what I understand, a lot of this comes down to how the public works director wants to do this process. So the city is, of course, well within its rights to say, if they wanted to say, hey, we're planning to reduce lanes on this street. We're going to implement these bike lanes because this is the best practice, and just do it and not care what anybody else thinks. It's not a smart plan, politically speaking, but they're within their rights to do that because they own the streets. The city pays for them. So what they have this bike and pedestrian master plan, which has laid out what they hope to do with all of these streets. The problem is that when they actually want to implement those, it first off is often really expensive because you're pouring concrete and ripping things out. It's more than just paint, which is pretty cheap. And also, as we found out, if you have heard anything about what happened with the bike lanes on Patrick Avenue, it's very contentious. People have strong feelings about this one way or the other. And so in an effort to do something with that, the city tries to do outreach to the people who are affected by it, like the neighbors who live in that neighborhood, and also like local bicyclists and pedestrians and people who interact with that, and get all that feedback together to try and find a plan that's going to basically piss off the fewest number of people while still being as safe as they can get away with. Sometimes that turns out not so great. I think a lot of people would I've heard from a lot of people that the Patrick Avenue project is the epitome of compromise, in that everybody is unhappy with it. No one seems to like that project, but you're stuck with it now. So yeah, I think it's often hard because a lot of times people don't necessarily have a full understanding of how beneficial these can be, even if you're saying like removing some street parking, for example. But also it's really difficult when how you're used to living is impacted in some way, and change is always scary. I think it's oftentimes just difficult for people, so they don't like change. They try and fight against it, and they're often very strongly opposed to it. Whereas the bicycle community is usually a bit smaller. The people who might benefit from it sometimes don't even understand how they might benefit from it in like a practical sense until they see it, which I totally understand. That's like my wife asking me like, do you like this paint color for the wall? And I'm like, I don't know. I need to see it on the wall to like the room covered in it to really understand if I like it or not.
Yeah.
Because I have made mistakes before. But I get that. So it's complicated. I think it's hard. I think they're trying to, the project that's sort of in the works right now for the East Bay Greenway, they're trying to do that, and they've done a lot of outreach. They've realized that the way to really get involved with the community is to like knock on doors, get good feedback, spend time educating the people who are affected by this, because it is complicated, often counterintuitive, and that can help like head off some of the really strong feelings that happen at the 11th hour, like right when you're about to pull the trigger on a project, or you get the money and you're starting to like go, and then everyone freaks out. So we'll see how it goes. But at the end of the day, the reason it's complicated is because they want to do all that feedback and get the community involved, to not get a bunch of people storming City Hall complaining about the bike lanes, because that's not what anybody wants.
Right. And I think I can pull up, in fact, and share for our folks watching the master plan. Let's see. Am I able to do this? God, I hope I am. Maybe I'm not able to do this. No, yes, I am. I can run a podcast and share at the same time. So if I'm not mistaken, this is the Hayward Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan that you may have mentioned. Hopefully, this is the most recent one. And am I correct in, at least from what I remember, the director of transportation stating that whenever they have to do something that involves class 2 bicycle lanes, that they're at least interested in doing engagement with the neighborhood and to get a sense of what the residents want? Is that correct, Colin? Is that your understanding? Or is that, am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so, at least where one doesn't exist already. I know at the very least if they start getting into like class 3, because like the way they classify these is just kind of bonkers, because like it doesn't really make sense. Because the way that would make the most sense generally is that like the higher the number, the more work you're going to have to do, the more intense these bike lanes are going to be. But
Yeah.
class 1 is already like a totally separated bicycle path, like it's a shared use path, like the Iron Horse Trail is a class 1 multi-use path, but it doesn't go anywhere near a road, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
A class 2 bike lane is like just the paint they put on the over by where the cars are parked. And then the buffered one is they paint the little extra buffer. And then when you get to class 3 is a bike boulevard where they like don't allow traffic to come through, like, or they limit car traffic or through traffic for cars. A bicycle route takes it back a little bit where they don't have paint, but they have just like the little bicycle that's painted in the middle of the road. So it's actually in a lot of ways, it's supposed to be more safe, but only in like low traffic areas. Like if
Mm-hmm.
it's high traffic, it's way less safe. And then you
Mm-hmm.
jump to class 4, which is like where, like on the northern and southern ends of Mission Boulevard, where you have like the concrete and then the bike lane, and it's all sort of very grade separated, and there's a lot of work that needs to go in to make that, and really separates the bicyclists from traffic. So like
Yeah.
the way they grade these is completely insane. Like it does not fit the way that makes the most sense. So yeah, it's again, it's complicated and weird. Like I don't know
Right.
why they decided to grade them this way.
Yeah. And I don't know. Here I am. I am not an urban planner. I don't have a background in transportation. I am just a dude with a microphone at this moment. I mean, I have more qualifications than that. But it would seem like to me, right, and of course, maybe this isn't the most popular, but it would seem like the major streets should maybe all be, if not this class 4, then at least a buffered bicycle lane for the major streets. Hesperian, I'm seeing here, there's no bicycle lane past La Playa Drive, this area between, what is this? I guess this is after Winton, basically. I don't know. I haven't ridden my bike there in a while, and I usually I'll ride my bike sometimes to the cafe. And in order to avoid Hesperian, which is kind of scary, I go all the way and take the back streets and ride through the neighborhood, which is actually really nice, really pleasant, but not the most direct way. Anywho, that's just one man's opinion without any expertise in this.
I mean, there are definitely people I think who would agree with you on that. I think personally speaking, I'm a fan of having bicycle and car traffic completely separated whenever possible. So like what I mean by that isn't just having a great, like, there are some folks who are very vocal who definitely want like buffered, like grade separated, like have the bike, those concrete barriers with bike
Yeah.
lanes all up and down Mission Boulevard and every main street. The problem is, and Councilmember Dan Goldstein brought this up too, and other people I've talked to have mentioned this, that like there is no amount of grade separating that you could do to make them feel safe on that particular road, because you have cars going past at 40 miles an hour. Like
Right.
you have a a foot wide piece of concrete between you, like a berm, but that's about it.
Yeah.
It's still not a pleasant ride. Like, as you
Right.
said, the pleasant ride is riding through the quiet neighborhoods. So
Yeah.
I think that's some of the thinking behind it, is to try and move the bikes away from where the heavy car traffic is and instead put them near in the quieter neighborhoods. The downside is that there's nothing in those neighborhoods. So
Yeah.
you're just biking through them to get to somewhere else, which is going to have all the car traffic because that's where all the businesses are.
Right.
So it gets really complicated, and it runs into a lot of the zoning issues that we talked about with ACUs last month. Shout
Yeah.
out to all the people who were excited about ACUs.
Hmm.
All we number in the dozens.
All yeah, yeah, all three of you. No,
Yeah, there are
just one.
tens of us. But yeah, so I think a lot of that, it all sort of fits together, and there's a lot of complications that go in that. So I think it's one of those things where there's different things, and also, it's supposed to be for all ages and abilities, and a lot of the people who are the most vocal are the people who are the most comfortable riding in these really busy sort of street areas. They're like capital C cyclists, like the
Yeah,
stereotypical spandex dudes who are fully comfortable like throwing on 1,000 lights and their high vis vest and like driving
totally.
down the middle of Mission Boulevard and like jumping into the turn lane to make a left-hand turn, like psychopaths in my opinion. I would never do such a thing because I value my life, but some people do that because they're fully comfortable with that, and that's cool.
I will
um
say, Colin, ever since I got my e-bike, all of a sudden this turned into a cyclist podcast. And ever since I got my e-bike, I've gotten the vest, high vis vest. I've thrown it on. I've gone into the left turning lane.
well,
I've
you're
done it.
basically on a motorcycle at that point. It's just an
Well,
electric
it's
motorcycle.
a pedal assist, so it's nothing crazy. I would say
Okay.
it feels like I'm if the way I explain it is like it feels like you're on a nice bike ride and you're not having to do a lot of work to get somewhere basically. But it does
Yeah.
feel like you're still riding. At least that's been my experience.
No,
One
for
thing
sure.
that go ahead, Colin.
No, good. Good.
No. I was taking it somewhere else. You finish that thought.
You're running for the bike times. No, I agree with you. I think they're lovely. I think that's one of the reasons why we see bicycling increasing in the city, is that e-bikes have made it a lot easier to just get around. There was a really old comment from some city council member ages ago saying that like Hayward should be, since most of it is so flat aside from the hills, that like Hayward should be just like lousy with bicyclists because it's so flat. But there's also, a lot of grade in there. Like there's some gradual ones you're going over and under like train tracks or by freeways or things
Mhm.
like that. There's a lot of hills that are pretty steep because they're designed for cars.
Right.
So those e-bikes are opening it up for a lot of people. Just if you're doing one of those ones that looks like a dang dirt bike, put a helmet on, for crying out loud. Just put a helmet on.
Welcome to Dad Corner, brought to you by over the
Legitimate dad.
loudspeaker and dads everywhere. So, and the other thing I'll mention, kind of related, and if you're wondering how we got from where we started of around 3 tragic deaths that could have been prevented to now going really in depth about bicycle and pedestrian master plan, is this is just again just a note from my own brain that may not be rooted in any sort of data here, but I will say I am back at my parents' place, and the number of cars that are on this block compared to when I was a kid is astronomical. And it makes sense, right? I'm back at my parents' place. It's affordable. They're older in age, so it makes sense. And there's, I'm sure, lots of people that are having larger house sizes because it's freaking incredibly expensive to live in the Bay Area. So you have more people on homes, meaning more cars per people. And Americans are insane about the number of cars we have, in my household included. I won't even mention the number of cars we have sitting in front. So we're contributing to the problem also. But if that's just one block, right? And I'm sure that there are many more blocks across the area that are similar with the number of folks living in a household, the number of cars, and it's tied to affordability. In my opinion, it's tied to affordability. I don't know if the data backs me up there, but if we were to address the affordability crisis, if we were to really sort of address housing, it's to say that I think these issues are more connected than the average sort of person maybe puts a little bit of thought into, into thinking about how these issues are connected. So I think when we're addressing things like pedestrian safety, we also need to be addressing the question around affordability and commuting and all of those things. So just another thought of that maybe is tied to it.
Could not agree more. I think so many of these issues around how our cities are and how we live in them are all tied together. That if you are interested in that kind of thing, if you're interested in one of those facets of it, whether it's affordability or bike and pedestrian safety, or even where businesses are located, or what kind of businesses are in Hayward, or what kind of housing people have access to, all of that is interconnected. And hopefully, I encourage you all to try and, who are thinking that direction, to think about them as interconnected things and try and work together and find common cause with other people who are maybe interested in slightly other facets of that sort of that equation, because we're all working toward the same place. We want to have, nice, safe cities that work for us, and that's right now, clearly, I don't think that's the case overall.
So the next thing I wanted to cover, Colin, and maybe the last item we talk about on this episode, is the press conference that was held not that long ago, a couple days ago, I think, or maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't know how time works anymore, but the local politicos got together, held a press conference in Hayward due to the deportation of a mother and her son, who is a deaf child. This made headlines, national headlines. I think this made international headlines. I'm pretty sure I saw a Guardian article covering it. So this is made the headlines. The Hayward Herald covered it. The son of Leslie Rodriguez Gutierrez, Joseph, Hayward residents. Young Joseph is a student at the California School for the Deaf in Fremont. This is a family that came to the US 4 years ago. They sought asylum from domestic violence from their home country of Colombia. They were initially denied the asylum. I believe the family appealed. Gutierrez had no criminal history. The judge, if I'm not mistaken, denied the order. They appealed. According to their lawyer, if I'm not mistaken, they had strong humanitarian reasons for staying in the country, and yet they received very little information from the Department of Homeland Security, from the DHS. They were being given bits and pieces of information, which I think kept the lawyer from submitting a habeas petition in the correct jurisdiction. So they were saying like, oh, we're going to send them to Washington. Oh, we're going to send them to Texas. Oh, we're going to send them to yada, 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 Arizona. And I was confused because I read two different things. I think I read that they were going to be sent to Louisiana, and then I think Phoenix. I'm not sure where it is that they actually were held in detained until they were deported to Colombia. They were detained during a routine check in San Francisco. They were in the intensive supervision appearance program, which is what I think happens when you are appealing your removal order. So following the law, doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, showing up to their court appearance. The mother, of course, made a decision to take her child with her rather than leaving her child with a designated person, right? Everyone's makes different decisions. When a family member was going to drop off the hearing aid for the child, the immigration authorities denied that from being delivered. And so I believe Swalwell's office flew to Colombia to deliver the hearing aid to the child. I mean, this is, as I continue it on, I'm like getting more and more furious at just the state of things in this country. But it isn't to say, and this isn't me absolving this administration by any means, but to say that this has been continued. This is nothing new, unfortunately. This case just happens to be an egregious one. But there have been cases in which children in particular are, I think, not the Colbert Report, but the other guy who came out of the Daily Show. Oh my God, John Oliver. John Oliver did a great segment about children who have to appear before an immigration judge, often without legal representation, often without the supervision of a parent or without a parent. So this is nothing new. This has been happening through various administrations in which, when the lawyer says there was strong humanitarian reasons to stay in the country. Yeah, there are strong humanitarian reasons. Jesus Christ, the fact that we have to make that argument, is insane. So anyway, what are your thoughts, Collin, in terms of this family from Hayward? I'm gonna say they're from Hayward. This family from Hayward being taken away and removed from the country and sent back to Colombia, especially with a child who was receiving an education. I think the state superintendents also spoke out. There was politicos across the not across the spectrum, but across various levels of government who spoke out against this at the Hayward press conference. I wasn't able to attend. I'm not sure, Collin, if you have any more insight on that press conference and what that was like.
No, I was not able to attend it. Shockingly, these things happen in the middle of a work day. So unfortunately, I'm still not able to do this as my full-time job as much as I would love to. I will say it's horrible. As you pointed out, they're doing, and as multiple other elected officials pointed out, they're doing everything right. They were following the law exactly how they were supposed to be, and they were still deported. And that's just horrific. That's not how that should happen. I will say also shout out to Kron Channel 4 for doing, I think, the bulk of the early reporting on this one. They did a fantastic job. If you haven't read their online report, I encourage you go there. They have money, they have people, they did a ton of really good work. For the press conference, my understanding is that Eric Swalwell, I believe, was calling the press conference, but also in attendance was Councilmember George Syrup, because my understanding is that the mayor was unable to attend, and also supervisor and former Hayward City Councilmember Elisa Marquez was also there. In our story, we got a little statement from Supervisor Marquez's office. I know she was a big proponent of spinning up ACILEP, the county's immigration response program, and their lawyer through Centro Legal de la Raza, who they contract out to, was one of the ones representing the family and able to bring all of this to light and get all that done. So definitely props to her and her office for pushing that through and keeping that funded and going. And also, again, props to Eric Swalwell for what it's worth. I am a frequent critic of Eric Swalwell. However, I do think in this case he did the right thing. Absolutely. Sending a staffer all the way down to Colombia to deliver hearing aids and vital, special needs equipment to a child who was wrongfully deported from the country against his will was a solid move. Absolutely the bare minimum we should be doing. What we should be doing is bringing that family back, because clearly if they were fleeing Colombia for asylum purposes, they're probably not safe being back there again. And so I think it would be great to have them, brought back here. I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately, given the political moment we're having, but I think that would be the just thing to do, because they were wrongfully deported, plain and simple.
Yeah, and this led me a little bit down a rabbit hole of just trying to get a sense of the bigger picture of what children face in terms of each year, in terms of facing deportation. I found a report by Vera, which is out of New York, that does a lot of research around incarceration, and I found that this data point of that more than 880,000 children were facing deportation in immigration court in the past 12 months. 880,000 children, and that over 63% of these children had no attorney. That figure blows my mind. Yeah, I guess if I'm not mistaken, immigration proceedings are different than criminal proceedings. You're not legally required to have a lawyer, and so that's why many people who are facing deportation orders do not have attorneys representing them. So children will often go before the judge without their parents, without a lawyer. And the worst part is, if I'm not mistaken, is that many of these hearings aren't public. And I could be wrong in the state of California whether that's true or not. But I'm near certain that many of the hearings happen behind closed doors when it's dealing with children, and I think that's probably the case for the most part. Because I think a lot of the detentions of especially children that are dealing with deportation orders are probably happening somewhere along the border. So I'm thinking like in places like Texas, but that could be happening in California as well. I'm just not 100% certain of that. At least in the state of California, this is including all peoples that are being, or persons that are being deported, is that more than a quarter of those detained don't have legal representation in the state of California. For the entire country, it's much higher. And then the last thing that I'll sort of talk about, ProPublica just did a piece on the latest tactic by the federal government of targeting immigrant families that have minor family court cases. And it's an interesting article, again, pretty tragic, to just continue learning about how there's basically this bureaucratic mechanism that is continuing to inflict harm on families that are simply seeking better life and a better way of living, and that there's this sort of bureaucratic mechanism that makes it nearly impossible to do that. And so this article talks about how if families with minor court cases, like for the example I think they give is that a dad who went to a Walmart to buy something, I forget exactly what it is, and left the child alone and was slapped with like a misdemeanor or something of that something along that line. And so this is the new tactic that the federal administration is going to begin targeting these families that already are going through the judicial system and likely labeling them as bad parents or as criminal or what have you, right? And these are often, again, vulnerable people who are suffering from things like poverty and multiple jobs and also different cultural customs that sometimes may be misinterpreted by authorities and school districts. Anywho, a truly infuriating case that we've had here in Hayward, and just hopefully stories like these that begin to turn the tide, just to show us how broken. I mean, when they talk about how this immigration system is broken, this is a bipartisan project for the past 30 some odd years, right, where neither party has figured out how to solve this. And in fact, I think I heard, oh my God, this is gonna break my brain, Collin. I think I heard Hillary Clinton saying, we went too far on immigration. And I think, hopefully I'm not misquoting this, and I'll pop up the thing if I can, is that she was talking about how the Democrats went too far, I don't know, to the left, or they got too lenient on immigration. Maybe I'm misinterpreting this or misunderstood the quote from Hillary, but that's what I got from it. So if I'm wrong about it, I'll cut this segment out. And if it's still here, then it makes me even more angry. So, it's, again, tragic story. It's unfortunate that this is how Hayward makes, a national headline, and it's a tragic story. It isn't, because we have an ice skater that won a gold. We were just so close, just a couple cities away. But it's a truly tragic story, and I hope we don't see more of these, especially of our fellow Hayward residents.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the things you pointed out, since they don't have legal representation and aren't required to have it or required to be provided it, is, as you mentioned, these are civil cases. These are civil infractions. This isn't criminal offense. This is literally the same as like the same level of crime as like, you know, driving without your headlights on or driving with your high beams on. That's a moving violation. Like, you know, these are civil offenses. These are very minor as far as the law is concerned, but you know, they're having obviously outsized and enormous impacts on people's lives and the people who care about them. So I hope that they come to a positive resolution, and you know, as much as we're able to. I mean, I don't have, goodness knows we don't have people on the ground in Colombia, but if we hear anything, I'll definitely be pushing for, we'll push out an update if we hear anything about them whatsoever. Hopefully it will only be positive.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, this piece that was written around this press conference was written by, it was a contributor, right? It was a contributing piece. Is that correct, Colin?
Yes, that was Andrea Jimenez, who was decided to put on the reporter vest. I don't know. I don't have a
yeah, the old timey hat with the hat,
yeah,
with the thing,
exactly.
and the, you know, the fedora or whatever, and the vest. Yeah,
exactly. So, yeah, so she's decided to help us out. I'm hoping to get you know, have some more things from her. She's done a couple stories and she seems excited to do more. I gotta chat with her some more, but there's some things in the works. So as always, if you would like to help us out and cover more things, get in contact with us. We're always happy to chat with folks, and you know, people who are interested in covering Hayward news or helping out Hayward news in any way. Come on down, send us an email, and there's an email on the website somewhere. I'll make sure of it, and you can hit us up, and we'll respond pretty quick. I promise.
and if you want to make impressive transition cuts for our YouTube show, if you want to do cool elements that are popping up or like zooming into my eyeballs as I'm infuriated, that's also much needed. We could use the help. Please contribute your talents. We'll gladly use you, and not use you, but you know, you'll help us. Well, help us help you. Is that no? I don't know. I should stop. All right.
Help us help the community.
Yeah. Help us get the news out. Help us keep the community informed. Well, Colin, we're here towards the end of our podcast, the end of our show. We're near spring. It's hot. It was in the 80s today.
So hot.
It's crazy.
I just came back from San Diego, and on Friday it was like pushing 100 degrees in March. What the heck?
Well, stay cool, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the episode. We'll be back in a month for April's episode, and then we'll have May's episode, and then maybe we'll have a short break, and you'll have season 3 of Over the Loudspeaker.
Don't let us take a break that's too long. Just demand that we come back, and that's what it's going to take.
And you can do that by making sure you watch this episode, you send this episode to your grandmother, and you have your grandmother send us baked goods. I assume your grandmother makes baked goods, maybe a nice warm apple pie, and then she sends it to her knitting group, which is, I'm sure, 25 or more people, and then they send it to someone, and that's how you get us to come back. All right, that's the end of the episode. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. I love you all.
We're all just losing our minds here at the end of this week. I swear to God.
It's the heat. I'm sweating.
We're all dying here. Please help us.
Thanks, Colin.
This podcast is a call for help.